Jeffro from Two Hacks Garage. Well, it's that time of year where the drag racing kind of wanes away and the shop time comes in pretty hot and heavy. Yes, guys, it's fall, and with fall here in Illinois, that turns to winter pretty quickly. This is the time of year I like to get a huge head start on projects, and two projects I have coming up is a 311 cubic inch small block Chevy and a 292 cubic inch small block Chevy. One of them is kind of a straight strip engine I'm going to build. Really don't have a purpose for it yet, but I have all the parts for it. That is a 283 based small journal engine. And the other one I'm going to be building, well, it's also a small block and it's also a small journal engine. It's a 327 302 block from 1967 that is going to utilize a forged steel 3-inch stroke crank to make 302 cubic inches. But with 60 over, that's going to make the 311 cubic inches. I like the really small, high revving stuff, especially when you apply it to something like this front engine dragster that doesn't have a whole lot of weight, doesn't need a big block. Small block's perfectly fine for it. So what's this video about? Well, it's time to machine and build some engines. I've done a lot of engine builds before, but I'm going to kind of take a little bit deeper of a dive into some of the intricacies that go into this. So this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to weigh pistons. These engines are internally balanced, and you want to make sure your pistons, your pins, all that fun jazz up on top actually matches weight. You do that with your rods too. However, I don't have the jig for that yet. So in this video, all I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to weigh these out. And from there, kind of gives you a better option if you need to remove material, if you feel comfortable doing that or having your machine shop do that. Like I said, guys, I'm going to take a lot more granular kind of deep dive into some of this engine building stuff. So this is just going to be a series of kind of how-tos on that. I'm also going to be doing videos soon on actually how to measure these pistons to get your final bore and hone specifications when we go to machine this. But this one here, guys, is just showing you a simple, easy way at home how to measure your pistons, see how much material needs to be removed. And from there, guys, sky's the limit. With that, let's show you what we got going on here. All right, so here's what I'm working with. I've got two sets of pistons that I'm going to do this on. These are the forged pistons that are going to go in the 311, and these are the hypertectic pistons that are going to go in the 292. So what I'm working with is pretty simple. I've got a scale here. Nothing crazy. I know there's more accurate ones, but this is what I could afford to get. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure everything in grams. So that's going to give the most accurate measurement and weights. And when I take this to go to the machine shop to get balanced, they're going to want to know all these different weights. Like I said, I'm going to try to calculate all that engine math for them to see how close I came. Knowledge is power. Always try and learn something new. So what are you going to need to do this? Well, for this step of the balancing project, you're going to need to have your pistons with the pins, and we're going to weigh those separately, but you're going to need your wrist pin, you're going to need your piston, you're going to need your locks, and you're going to need your rings. Real quick, guys, when weighing out your rings, make sure you get your oil rings back in the same orientation that they came out of, because you can see your first and second rings are different. Same with your oil. These are pretty easy to match back up. These sometimes can be tricky. So that's what I'm going to have. And I do have a pad and paper with all this information. I'll show you that here in a second when I go writing stuff down. But yeah, so once again, what you're going to need is you're going to need a scale. This is kind of a generic one. You're going to need your pistons, your wrist pins, your locks, and your rings. With that, guys, let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, first thing first, I do have my sheet here that has everything written down. And this is each, and it's in grams. And I got it for each engine I'm building, and I have it marked for piston, pin, locks, that's a pair of locks, and rings. What I do on this, guys, is I will get the locks and rings out of the way first. From what I found, they're always going to be the same. I've never found them where they're really out of spec too much, but it's pretty simple. Seeing that you're going to have a pair of locks on a piston, it's not hard at all. So you just put on your scale. We'll make sure it's on first, and you're going to weigh those out. So that's where I got my 3 grams. All right, like I said, I already weighed all these out. They were all the same. Now, when I do my rings, what I do is I weigh them individually. And I always write these numbers down. Like I said, you don't want to get things mixed up. I always weigh them out, where they're going to sit individually. And remember, you're going to have on your oil ring, you're always going to have the two skinny ones and that one. So what I do is I weigh all that out individually, every single one of them, and then I add it up and I get my number for rings. But like I said, guys, I already took care of all of that. That's done. When I went through, they were all exactly the same for both engines. So the next part about this is you're going to want to weigh your piston and your pin. And then you're going to write down your total on this. And this is just part one of a series I'm going to do to kind of calculate, if you want to call it the bob weight that's going to need to balance that crankshaft. It is an Eagle crankshaft. I still got a little bit of information to research on that to calculate that. I just want to see how close I can get to what the actual bob weight is going to be for that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out your wrist pin first. This one's a little tight. You're going to have to put a little oil on that. And what you're going to do is you're going to weigh the piston. Oop. Turn that back on. I'm going to calibrate that. Here we go. I'm going to weigh that out, and it's going to tell me in grams. So like I said, guys, I have these all numbered. I should have done the first one, which I'll go back to do that in order. So piston number one, if you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These will actually go in the engine as the cylinders say they're supposed to, the 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. Everything will stay where it needs to be between machining, between balancing, between assembly, all of that type of stuff. These will stay the same. So you know what, guys, I'll redo that. That's my bad. I'm going to start off with piston number one, and I'm going to get that piston weight. 649, so I'm going to write that down. Like I said, that's in grams. And then I'm going to weigh the pin, and that's 158. I'm going to slide that back together. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through, and you're going to do that to every single piston. And I'm going to do this again on another one, just kind of show you the, kind of the orientation here. I'm going to go to number 2, 648. So you see a difference there. Okay, so we do see a difference. We got our pin at 158. That difference will actually matter, and I will show you at the end of this here after I get all these weighed out. All right, so I got everything measured out and weighed. I did make sure I was using the scale appropriately, and a lot of cases you really want to make sure you get it centered directly in the center of this. Like I said, this isn't a high-end scale, but you know what? For what I'm doing, it's going to work. And through each one, what I did is I wrote everything down numerically to how I have all those labels. Just as a reminder, that will be for cylinder number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those will also be marked on the block. It's just kind of a good reminder if you don't do this all the time. So as you can see here, all the pins weighed out at 158 grams. Like I said, I already did the locks and rings. All of those were 3 grams and 43 grams. However, on the pistons, as you can see here, they're all 649, except for one of them is at 648. So our total weight on these is 853 across the board, except for number 2. And what I ended up doing is I added this section. I ended up weighing the pistons and the pins together just to see, maybe it's the scale, because this scale here, it doesn't go down to like half a grams. It's just, grams. I just wanted to see. So as I went through there, all of them were 807, which is that and that right there. And except again for number 2, it came out to be 852, 806, 648, 158. So what that's telling me is if I was to want to weight match all of these pistons, which needs to be done for proper balancing, I think you're supposed to get it within a half a gram of each other. I am going to do some more research on that. What you're going to do is you're going to mill out on the bottom here. See this pad section right here? That's actually pretty thick. That's going to be a pretty durable area. And what you're going to do is you're going to use a mill, and you're just going to start milling out just a little bit of material on each side. You're going to want to do it here and probably over here, so it just kind of balances it out. You don't want to take it all out of one side. Just a little at a time, and you're going to reweigh it. So the problem with that is, it's not actually a problem in my opinion, but it's just going to be a time-consuming thing. Because if you look here, all of these are 649, and you have one that's 648. Obviously, you're not going to add weight to it, so all of these pistons that are 649 are going to have to be milled down to the 648, because you take your lowest piston weight, and that's what you're going to go off of right there. Unfortunately, with this, well, if you see there, guys, I have 7 pistons that need to be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and calculate and get all the, or weigh out and get all these taken care of here, and show you all the math at the end of the result and kind of go on the next steps. See you in a few. All right, so the pistons are going to be for the 292. Those are complete. And as you can see, same thing. All the locks are the same. All the rings are the same. All the pins were the same. So if you look here, our lowest number was 566 grams on all of them, but 2. So there's going to be 2 pistons in here that need to be milled, 1 gram each out of it to get everything to be weight balanced on these pistons. Now, I want to show you something real quick. On the bottom of these pistons, you see on the bottom of this skirt, it's already had a little bit of drilling done on all of these. They probably did it at the factory to get these balanced as close as they could. Obviously, you can see here they're within 1 gram. But what I need to do is, these are a forged piston, and this Speed Pro, Sealed Power. This is like the old TRW. And these are Keith Black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to contact the manufacturer each, and just to see what the actual tolerance is on how close the grams need to be weighed on the pistons. I want to get them as close as possible, because this is going to be a race engine, and this is going to be a pretty healthy street engine. So yeah, that's what I'm working with, guys. And it's really not that hard. It takes a little bit of time. Like I said, you need a scale. You need your pistons, you need your rings, you need your locks, all that fun jazz. Just don't mix it up. So what am I going to do here now? Well, what I need to do now is I need to calculate the big end and little end rod weights. I need to get a jig for that, guys, which I'm going to get one ordered up, and I'm going to show you how to get that calculation going on that, and weigh the bearings. And kind of my whole goal is to, this is just part of a bigger picture here. So I'm trying to get to a point where I can calculate bob weight based upon what they're going to need to bounce that crankshaft. I know I don't have to do this. A lot of times the machine shop does, but knowledge is power. I like learning, and I want to learn as much as I can. But this is something very simple. And like I said, if you don't feel comfortable milling this out, machine shops will do that for you. I'll probably take care of myself based upon what the manufacturer says. But yeah, guys, it's really not that bad. It takes a little time. You just need your stuff. You need to be able to calculate, do a little math, write everything down. With that, next video I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to measure pistons and how that's important to calculate your final bore. With that, we'll see you in the next one.